We are now recording and I'm sharing the screen. So let's take a look at 372 here. Okay. Content. All right. So we are kind of at the beginning, I would say, of the second third of the course. Okay. So basically we have covered so far intro to Linux commands, intro to scripting with Python. We looked at services, more commands. We looked at task scheduling and cron, and we looked at network packets a little bit and DNS, right? So we've looked at this idea. So the next set of topics that are really important for us to cover, user account management. We are going to cover this idea of Hadoop. It's just more Linux configuration, but it does bring in a few new ideas like a virtual file system and things like that. We're going to cover Wireshark, so I'm actually going to talk about that today. Your assignments will have another case, Linux firewalls, which will be the IP tables. You know, that's a core thing. You know, firewalls are important for you guys, cybersecurity students, and we're just going to look at the firewall in Linux, basically. You're familiar with, you know, probably you have your Windows Defender or something like that on your own systems, your own different firewalls. All right, we are going to cover also Anaconda and Docker. So Anaconda has to do with environments and version control. And then Docker is really important as a virtualization, containerization tool. So I might move this one up actually a little bit. So we'll cover that probably sooner rather than later. All right, and then yeah, Anaconda, Docker, and then that should take us to exam 2 probably. And then SNMP will be one of the big topics. Oops, sorry. SNMP will be one of the big topics, which I'm sure you've heard of SNMP in your networking classes. You've covered that protocol. Just has to do with network monitoring. So a big thing, you know, just like you did a script of how to collect performance metrics of your Linux system. Well, now let's take that up to the whole network center, right? So the whole network infrastructure. So what would be the protocol for that? All right, and so we could do that obviously with regular scripts, but SNMP is a protocol dedicated for that. Okay. A few miscellaneous topics like grep-and-awk. I'll cover these. Bash scripting, right, as we get, and then the file system, which we've touched on before. All right, any questions? All right, so let's go ahead, and today's topic is account management. As I said, I'll probably have a few more notes next week on this, but today we're just going to focus on this lab. I went over this, I believe, on Tuesday. So really today we can just focus on the lab itself, okay? So I have a Word document here. It's got a few problems. I may create a couple more problems for you to play with. So look for that by tomorrow. But this should be, you know, pretty general. So I'll open up my virtual machine and we're going to kind of start going over some of the concepts of the lab. But as you can see, if we just look at the big picture, basically we'll start with sudo, which you have a sense of what it is, the root account, okay, create, you know, changing your password, enabling the root, and then basically one of the big topics, adding and deleting users. Okay, so we'll take a look at that. So we'll be doing all of this manually on the terminal, okay? Creating a dummy account, and then deleting the account and the steps that we kind of need to address for that, okay? So that's basically the idea. Temporary lock and unlock a user account, so we'll go over some of those ideas as well. We'll look at user profile security. So whenever you create an account, you're actually creating that account based on some profile that already exists, right? So we can take a look at that as well. Groups, so we'll go over groups as well. And then you should have a problem. And this problem I'm going to leave for you guys to solve, okay? So kind of the idea is you're going to block someone, but you're going to block them based on group policy, okay? And it's going to be an SSH type of an exercise. So SSH, if you don't remember, is the secure shell, right? So we're going to create a tunnel from one computer to the other, and it's a secure tunnel basically, and that's SSH. So what you're going to have to do in one machine is, in your demo, you're going to let the person SSH into the machine, then you're going to change the policy so that they're blocked out, right? And that's kind of the idea. That's the problem. I'll discuss the problem, but I do want you guys to work through this one. And then to motivate things, like I said, I have one problem written so far. I may add, I have to think about this a little bit, but I'll do it possibly one more or two more problems related to this topic. But the basic idea is very simple. You know, a lot of things in the course are about automation, right? Make the task of sysadmin very secure, but also automate it as much as possible, you know, reduce the amount of work that you have to do. So the problem is, what if I asked you, okay, I need you to create, here I say 30 to keep the problem simple in terms of what you have to do, but what if I said create 300 accounts? And I give you a list. That wouldn't be fun, right? If you have to start doing it manually, one at a time. So the script that you have to write is a script basically that would create these 30 accounts automatically given a file. So assume, you know, maybe you're going to have the whole district of high schools come in and they need to access some servers. So the principal or something would send you a file of all the students, their names, kind of things, and then you have to create the users, etc. And it all has to be very secure in Linux and so on. All right, so that's one of the problems that we will be getting to today. So I'll give you kind of a starting code for it, but I'm not going to solve it 100%. At the end of the day, when you do your lab report and your screenshot, you can go to the computer, and at the upper right-hand corner, when you click on it, it shows you like the list of all the accounts. So you can show me that to show that you've created all those accounts as evidence. And then I'll look at your script and, you know, any questions on that? All right, so let's read through the problem, and then we'll work our way back, start the virtual machine, and start going over all the details. So assume you're a system administrator for a high school. Okay. You're having a seminar over the weekend for 30 students. So you need to create user accounts for all students on your Linux Ubuntu server. Since you're very busy, you would like to automate this task. Assume you have a text file containing the list of all 30 students. Using Python, write a script that can read the users from the text file and create the accounts. You need to include your script and evidence that the script worked. All right, so this is to be completed by you guys. As I said, we'll start going through some of the ideas. You could also do this in Bash, other languages, obviously, but we're gonna implement it in Python. All right, so let me start the VM, and we'll go over the details. Okay, so I think this is my main VM. All right. While it's loading, are there any questions on the DNS lab that's due tonight? Should be a link for it. Everyone good with that? Okay, great. All right, good. All right, here we go. I'm going to start the VM. All right, so let's kind of begin. So we'll be just typing some of the commands initially and navigating through the various locations in our Linux operating system. All right, so I'm going to create a new folder here. I'm just going to call it user account management. To navigate here. Okay. All right, so we are there. Okay, so let's go back to Brightspace and just take a look at the document. Okay. All right, so basically let's just start looking at things. So Ubuntu developers made a conscientious decision to disable the administrative root account by default in all Ubuntu installations. This does not mean that the root account has been deleted or that it may not be accessed. It merely has been given a password which matches no possible encrypted value, therefore may not log in directly by itself, okay? Instead, users are encouraged to make use of a tool by the name of sudo to carry out system administrative duties, okay? Now, if you had a root account, what could happen is that all the administrators might just know the password to root, right? So for convenience, they would all do. And then what would administrators do? Sysadmins would just log into root, fix their problem, get out, right? So that's great, but the problem is then there's no accountability, right? If let's say all of you are system administrators, right? How would you know who did it, right? Who was the person that made the change in the system? So for accountability purposes, then you have this idea of the sudoers group, where you use your own account, right? Whatever, seed. And then that gets added into the sudoers group. And then basically, whenever you want to do something that requires the root privilege, you can just sudo into that account, basically. So that's really the idea. All right. So don't forget, that's kind of what it was created for. So auditing, accountability, tracing, all that, paper trail, if you will. All right, so sudo allows, so we're reading bullet number 3 here. All right, so sudo allows an authorized user to temporarily elevate their privileges using their own password. Instead of having to know the password belonging to the root account, this simple yet effective methodology provides accountability for all user actions and gives the administrator granular control over which actions a user can perform with set privileges, right? So that's kind of what I was saying. If for some reason you wish to enable the root account, simply give it a password, all right? So basically here then, we have a command sudo passwd. Sudo will prompt you for your password and then ask you to supply a new password for root as shown below. So here we have password for username, enter your own password, enter the Unix password for root, retype the new password for root, and then it should be updated successfully. All right, so let's go ahead and try this. All right, so this is the first thing that we're going to try today. And then in bullet number 7, it says to disable the root account, use the following pass WD syntax. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead. I'm not going to do 9 right now, but let's just take a look at this one. Since I've used this machine before, I may have root in there already enabled. So I'm going to try to see. I'm going to do SU. Okay, so I don't think I have them. Let me try it again. All right, so I don't think it's enabled then. All right, so then let's go ahead and follow the instructions here. So I'm going to do sudo pass wd, new password. I'm going to give it these. Password updated successfully. There we go. Does that make sense, guys? Everyone with me? All right, so important things to take a look at this point. Right? Root account. All right. Before we had seed account. You can see that there. Okay. This symbol here is also important. Remember what I've said, sometimes I just give you like the 2 greater than symbols. That doesn't exist in Linux. It's just a made up thing that I use because sometimes you need to understand what privileges you need to have for a specific task. So usually, if you notice, when I was just using the seed account, I had the $sign. Do you guys see that? And that signifies whenever you look at it that you just have a normal regular user privilege. But when you see the £, that should indicate, this symbol here should indicate to you that you have the root privilege. Okay, that makes sense. All right. Other things you can try. Who am I? Root. You can also try ID. What ID should you expect root to have? The 0 ID, okay? So you can see that here is the 0 ID. Got it? All right, so those were pretty important things. So basically, we have enabled the root account. Remember, it does exist there, but in theory, you should not really be using it. Any questions? All right, great. So we did that step, okay? We followed the steps. Then it says to disable the root account, use the following pass WD syntax. So in general, we can go ahead and disable it because we know that actually we can do everything just with the sudoers group enabled. So I'm going to do that then. So sudo pass WD dash. Oh, and I'm actually in the account. So let me. So I'm switching back now to my account. So I'm seed now. So I've gone back to it. Where am I? Seed, ID, UID. You can see over here, it is 1000. Okay, so you have switched back out. Now you can go ahead and disable the root account. Probably not a good idea to disable it when you're in it. All right, although you probably would default to your own. All right, so I'm going to hit clear here. Okay, so I'm hitting clear. Now I'm going to go ahead and do sudo pass WD -L root. Okay, so to disable the root account. Okay, password expiry information changed. Okay, so now we can try once again. and it doesn't let us. Any questions? All right, great. So yeah, so that's basically the kind of the first steps of the lab, just to kind of underscore that important topic. By default, the initial user created by the Ubuntu installer is a member of the group admin, which is added to the etc sudoers group as an authorized sudo user. If you wish to give any other account full root access through sudo, simply add them to the admin group. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at this file. So I'm going to do, first of all, ls-l etc, and I'm going to say sudoers. Okay, you can see basically we have that. You guys now know how to read all of this. So you know this file is controlled by root, owned by root. It's a file because it's got a little dash there, and it's read-only. See that? Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at it. So I'm going to do nano etc sudoers. There's no such thing as nano. Does exist. Sudo. Did I not say sudo? You guys understand that the error I was getting, right? Why was I not seeing anything? Right, only what? Owner and what? And group, right? But I had no R here, right? So to be able to read it, I had to go in and do the sudo. Okay? All right, great. Excellent. All right, so let's go ahead and hit clear here. Let's read it again. Okay, so this, we are in the file. Okay. We can take a look there. We have, but basically there's a lot of parameters here. Well, there's going to be somewhere, this may be accessing another file. Please consider adding local content in etc sudoers.d instead of directly modifying this file. All right, so let's go there. So it's going to be etc sudoers.d. Okay. Does that exist? It's a directory, I guess. What is the name of the file? Used to be etc sudoers, but I don't see. Please consider the details. Members of the admin group all gain root privilege. Allow members of group sudo to execute any command. See sudoers 5 for more information. Include etc sudoers. Wait a minute, you have to go to cat etc group. Trying to find where the sudoers group is, and I think it's this one actually, right? Where is it? This one. So that would tell me, so that may have changed a little bit. Let me see. I guess we're gonna have to try this when we create an account. Yeah, oh, here it says, all you have to do is add the user to the pseudo group. Okay. All right, so here is the pseudo group right here, right? Do you guys see that? So, and seed is a part of it. So basically then, we're gonna try, we need to create an account and add it here. Do you guys have another approach? No? Yeah, so, but yeah, so I was thinking there was a sudoers list in that sudoers file, but I can see that this Ubuntu changes. So this version of Ubuntu may have changed this a little bit, but this makes sense. So this is the groups file, and we have a pseudo group, and seed is added to it. So to test our theory here, we're going to create an account, add it here, and then see if we can get the root privilege. Okay, so that will be one of the objectives. But I'm reading here the documentation, and it says, granting sudo access to a user in Ubuntu is a simple task. All you have to do is to add the user to the pseudo group. All right, so that kind of makes sense. All right, so let's go ahead and continue with our document. Get clear here. Go back to the Word document. So we've completed this task. So now we are at the point of adding and deleting an individual user. All right, so bullet number 1 here says, adding in number 1, the process of managing local users and groups is straightforward and differs very little from most other GNU Linux operating systems. Ubuntu encouraged the use of the add user command package. There are, in fact, 2 commands. I think this one is add user, the other one is user add, and they have different features, okay? So just remember that. So encourage the use of the add user package for account management. To add a user account, use the following syntax and follow the prompts to give the account a password and identifiable characteristics such as a full name, phone number, etc. All right, so we're going to go ahead and attempt to do that. So sudo add user username. Okay, so let's go back to the terminal. All right. Okay, so I'm going to add it. We would need the sudo privilege again. So only an administrator would be able to do this. And we're going to do add user. And then let's think of a name. So that we can think of. So here it suggests to use dummy one, dummy two. So I'll use that dummy one, but you can create your own account, right? Maybe you're tired of using seed and you just want to use your own name. So then, use the conventions and create your own account there. All right, so sudo add user dummy one. Okay, so it says adding user dummy one, adding new group dummy one. Remember that when you create an account, you also create a group for that account. It's a group of one for that person. Okay. Notice the ID that it is 1002. Okay, that has been assigned as the ID. Seed is 1000. Adding new user dummy with group, that. Creating home directory at home dummy one. So remember that when you create an account in the system, you're also creating this home folder as well. Okay. And copying files from the etc.skel. So there's basically a set of profile files that have been defined that can be loaded. And we can take a look at those a little bit later. So you need to give it a new password just to be consistent. I'm going to use the same Ds. Keep in mind, this process basically would take whatever you type, hash it, create the encrypted version of it, and save that in the shadow file. So that's all really important information. Keep in mind, you're going to have to automate this process, right? So there's going to be some challenges there that need to be addressed. Full name. So let's see, changing the user. So dummy one. Room number. Dummy one room. Work phone. I mean, you don't have to enter all this. Is this information correct? Yes. Okay. So we basically completed the task. Okay. We should have created this. So now we can take a look here. We can go to open another terminal. I have another terminal here. And now I'm going to do, let's see where we are, ls-l. So home fold pwd, right? So home, we're in seed. So I'm going to do cd.ls. And now you guys can see that I have created the account. This is the home folder of this new account, dummy one, basically. So, that's the new account. You can cd into it. Okay, and now you're in that folder. Now, remember, you are still seed, but you're navigating to this account, basically. Any questions? So by default, it creates this process. Okay, great. So the account should be created. We can do su dummy one, type the password, and you are now in that account. In that account. Who am I? Dummy one, ID. You can see it's 1002. Okay, so you are there. Click here. So now we can go back to seed. Okay, so we are back at seed, basically. We're still in that folder, pwd. Okay, so we're not going to do anything right now, so we can just exit out of this terminal. Okay, and we are out. Any questions so far? Pretty easy, right? So this is very easy things. Okay, so I'm going to hit clear. All right, so we can continue reading through the document. Stop me if you have any issues. So we use add user. Now, to delete a user account, and its primary group use the following command. So now assume you have to, maybe it was an employee, they left, but they had a lot of data in their folder, their dummy folder had a lot of files, etc. All right, so what happens there? All right, so basically it says to delete a user account and its primary group, use the following command. So now we're going to use sudo del user username. So we can go back to the command line, and I'm going to say sudo, remember I'm seed, I'm going to delete dummy1. So sudo del user dummy1, just like that. Okay, so you can proceed to hit enter, removing user dummy1, warning group dummy1 has no members, done. Okay, that was a group, remember, could have had members. Okay, so now the folder is still there, so that doesn't get deleted. Okay, but that account should not exist. I should have shown you that we could see it up here. I forgot to do it. It's not going to be there anymore. Okay. We can go to the passwd file, I suppose. So etc passwd. Now that account may still be in use and the system won't assign it again. We can test that theory actually by creating a second dummy2. If you remember, the account it got was 1002, right? So it may be that some systems by default will not reassign that for a while. Okay, so let's see here. I see root, bin, don't see dummy1. Dummy1, right? You guys don't see dummy1 either. You see seed, bind, yeah. So we don't see dummy1 anymore. Okay, so let's continue. So we've deleted that, but if we go to open a new window again, okay, I'm gonna do ls. All right, so C actually pwd more helpful. Yeah, so we need to cd ls-l. Dummy1's folder is still there, okay? So what do you do with that folder? So basically at this point, it is the system administrator's kind of decision what to do with that. And maybe the idea is to back it up, to archive it, if you will, archive it, zip it, archive it somewhere. And also, you may not want, maybe that employee had confidential information, so you want to lock it down, right? So you can do all of that through access control. All right, so let's read through the documentation of the lab. So we've completed the task. Now we're in bullet number 6 here. So deleting an account does not remove the respective home folder, as we have seen. It is up to you whether or not you wish to delete the folder manually or keep it according to your desired retention policies. So of course we could delete it, rm-r, gone, right? But you may want to archive it instead. That might be like the policy for the sysadmin, so you have to think about that. So to delete the folder manually or keep it according to your desired retention policies. Remember, any user added later on with the same UID, GID as the previous owner will now have access to this folder if you have not taken the not necessary precautions. You know what I mean? This is what I was saying. So, you know, some Ubuntu systems may not assign that account right away, right? But if they did create a new account and they get 1002 effectively, they are that old account. So they would have access to all of this. You may want to change these UID, GID values to something more appropriate, such as the root account, and perhaps even relocate the folder to avoid future conflicts. All right, so we're going to do an example. So create an account to delete. We just did that, so just dummy1. Go to the home directory to view the folder, ls-l. We've already done that. then delete it. After deleting, check the home directory. We've done that. So this is what we're going to try to do now. In bullet number 14, we're going to, instead of deleting it, we're going to try to just lock it down. Okay. So if you look, these commands should be familiar to you. Basically sudo chown, which is changing the ownership, right? The -r, so that it's recursive. So we're going to do this to a folder, so it'll apply to everything in the folder. And we're going to change the user and the group from dummy1 or whatever it was to root. Effectively, we're going to lock it down, and only root or maybe sudoers would be able to process this file. Does that make sense, guys? All right, so let's go ahead and follow these commands. There's actually 3. The other one, well, I'll do one by one, okay? But you can see the second one is to create a make directory archived users so that you can keep track of all the, maybe all the employees that left, and you just archive their folders. And then you're just going to move. So this command is probably new. We haven't used it this semester. MV to move something. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that in the system. All right, so our target, if you can see, you guys don't have this because, your new VM. I just probably did this last semester, so I'll create a new one. I'll just call it like archive users 2024. All right, so first command, sudo chown, change ownership, -r for recursive. And we're going to change this one. Notice now it only says 1002, 1002, right? So the ID is still exists. It's just no longer tied to dummy1. So I'm going to go ahead and change that to root : root. Make sense? And then we specify the folder, the target folder. So in this case, /home, and then it should be dummy1. Just like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and we can pay attention to what it says here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so now ls-l, if you notice, the dummy1 folder has now, basically you got this root and root. Okay. Now we do have these permissions though, right? We do have these permissions here, R and X. So maybe a good idea to drop them. You guys see that? chmod O minus R -R dummy1. Did I type 0 in there? Probably 0. Sorry. So it may be that I actually don't need to do that then. So I'm going to cd into dummy1. Yeah, because I think that what they're changing the root is just so that if somebody comes in that's new and they're 1002, they won't have access to this, right? I can still get in there, and if there's a file in there, I would access it. So what did it say? What I was trying to do is removing these permissions from this folder. How do we do that? Yeah, go ahead.
Just did sudo and then it gave me permission denied, and I tried to do LSL and the dummy, but it just permission denied.
Oh, really? So you went into dummy? Okay, let me see that. So cd dummy, right? And then you say here you type ls-l, because to me it lets me.
actual command, the command you showed us, chmod o -r,
Mm-hmm.
I did sudo in front of it.
Did I not do sudo?
Mm.
Oh, okay. All right. That would make sense then. Okay. That makes more sense. All right. So then I need to go back. Yeah. All right. So let me see that command again. Okay. Yeah. I see that. Thank you. All right. So yeah, sudo, right? Because it's root, chmod o-r r dummy one. Okay. Yeah. It's okay. All right. So now ls-l, see, the R is gone, right? So the R is gone. Okay, great. Great call. All right. So now let's try it again for the other one. And this is just, you know, as a sysadmin, you're just like making these decisions, right? Based on your policy of what you want to do with it. But you're trying to lock down this file and so. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat this exercise. Now I'm going to do the X. Okay, great. All right, there we go. So now its dummy is now root owned by a user and group. And root can do, you know, whatever it wants, but everyone else is locked out basically of that folder. And if you get somebody new with a new user that gets 1002, they will no longer have access to that folder. Make sense? All right, great. All right, so that's a good part. Now let's do even further. We're going to archive this folder and just, you know, move it somewhere else. So I'm going to go ahead and create mkdir home. I'm going to do home. And I'm going to create archived users 2024. Okay, so I'm going to create that one. All right. Notice that, oh, did I do? Yeah, doesn't matter. Notice that because I use sudo, it created this. In this case, actually, this is something that we might want. We want this folder to kind of be restricted to and identified as a root folder, basically. And now we are going to try to attempt to move dummy1 into that folder. So that's going to be sudo mv for move. And I'm going to do home dummy1. And we're going to move that into home archived users 2023. Okay, great. Hit clear. ls-l. So you can see that the folder has now been moved and we basically secured it, right? So it's like access control once again to organize our files. We can go into archive users just to take a look at it. And you can see it has been moved and everything with all the permissions. Any questions? Pretty easy, right? As I said, this is a very easy lab, but it does require us to do a few steps. Let me grab my charger here. All right, so let's go ahead and continue. All right, so we're going to move to the Brightspace again to continue our document. And actually, before I continue, before I forget, because this is an easy homework, so you actually have an additional homework this time around, which is the Wireshark reading. All right, so I'm going to take this opportunity before I forget to talk a little bit about that as well. So I usually assign these readings when I think you have like an easy lab that week. And so this is definitely an easy one. DNS would have been a hard one. All right, so let's take a look here. So I'm gonna, if you notice, count management, and then I added this Wireshark reading 1. You'll have several of those, about 4 in total for the semester. You've already started to use Wireshark, I believe. You played with it a little bit to look at things, but maybe you're not so familiar with it. And so Wireshark is more of a like a GUI point and click kind of thing. So these tutorials are nice reading assignments, basically. So I'll talk a little bit about them. So I'll create a separate link for these. So let's start with that. So this will be this is usually what the write-up of the assignment link will say. So read the attached Wireshark PDF, okay? Follow the instructions and analyze the corresponding PCAP files, okay? All you have to submit is a 1-page summary of your reading, okay? So you just write, I can't read something that's 10 pages long but I'll read the 1-page summary, and just basically after you've done the assignment, you'll kind of know what it was about and just do a summary of it. You can put a screenshot even if you want. Okay, so basically that's what is required of these, because there's no problem in them or anything like that. They're just tutorials for you to read to learn how to use Wireshark. Okay, so what are these PCAP files? You can see that here is this zip file. So a PCAP file is just something like TCP dump or Wireshark or anything like that would create. It's a dump of network packets. Okay, so this folder will contain several PCAP files with individual names. And so when you're going through the Wireshark reading requires you to open Wireshark, load the PCAP file, and then just follow the instructions. It'll say like, click here. And it's basically a way of teaching you how to open and read the packets and understand and create reports. Okay, so that's basically the idea. So I'll click on the PDF. The readings should be really nice and fun. This one is the introduction, the first one. So it just introduces, kind of Wireshark, some of the advanced Wireshark features, right? So you can go through it. And as you know, it's all about packet inspection and understanding things, okay? So eventually some of the problems talk about a slow network or a printer that doesn't work, things like that. And it just kind of gives you some ideas of what you would look for if you had Wireshark, and that's what you were trying to, it's the way that you were trying to debug things. Okay, so here basically just follow the instructions. It basically just talks about the layers of the network and everything. It's the very first one. And it shows you how to get information out of the PCAP files that you've collected, and basically generating reports. Sometimes if I put a check on it, it just means like, if I thought it was an important thing to look at. But basically go through this one, okay? And, you can, like I said, it talks a little bit about DNS and everything. Okay, so you can see that there. It'll start eventually generating some reports of the information. Okay, so it starts to give you some of the ideas of all the features available in Wireshark. And like I said, it's just learning how to use Wireshark to analyze packets, okay? So it'll generate reports. This is going to become a common theme as we move forward, generating these graphs over time. So, what is the uptime of this server over like a week, right? And so a lot of monitoring is part of the course in SNMP. So we'll also look at that from the network point of view, but here you're only looking at it from the point of view of one machine, one current system, okay? So this will just give you a lot of the statistics, and it basically covers Wireshark, and that's it. Does that make sense, guys? At some point, somewhere in the beginning, it tells you which file to load. I don't remember exactly where that is. but somewhere in here, it says load this PCAP file. I can't remember where it is. I'm pretty sure it's there, but I just don't. Oh, maybe it's this one. Lots of web.pcap. You guys see that? Make sense? Any questions? Yeah, so that should be an easy thing, and you'll get a few of these readings. 3 or 4 more, or 2 or 3 more. All right. Okay. So let me this is an easy thing to do. So it take an hour or 2 to complete. I'm going to add the link here already so that you know this will be due a week from today. All right. So I'm just going to copy this. Okay, I'm going to create the assignment link for it. Okay, so Wireshark reading 1, new assignment. It says homework, Wireshark 1. Put the year here just in case. Okay. So this will be due, today is the 22nd, so it'll be due on the 29th by 10 p.m. And then I'll just paste this in, which is read the attached Wireshark PDF, follow the instructions, and analyze the corresponding PCAP files. Please submit a 1-page summary of your reading. Clear enough? All right, great. And then I'm going to, so it should be open. Nope. Should be open now, and it'll stay open until Saturday, the 2nd of March. Okay. All right, so that should be it. So that assignment is set up. Let me actually set up the other one. Did I set up the DNS, drop the link for DNS? Do you guys know? Have you guys submitted that? Yeah, okay, great. So DNS assignment link. Yeah, it's there. And I'm gonna, before I forget, I'm also going to add the account manager. We've done a lot of this already. So account management, this one. Assignment. All right, so this is going to be homework, account management. Okay. So this is also going to be due on the 29th at 10 p.m. It's open now. It'll stay open until the 2nd of March. All right, so complete the attached Word document. Make sense? All right, so there you go. Oh, and I'll say for user account manager. All right, so that's like housekeeping. So we took care of your assignments for next week. Obviously on Tuesday, we'll start a new topic. I haven't decided which one yet. All right, so let's go ahead now and get back to the PDF or the Word document. Should be this one. We created a dummy account, then we deleted it and we moved the folder. Now we're going to move to the next step. It should be temporarily lock or unlock a user account, use the following syntax respectively. Okay, so we're going to proceed with that. So basically, these commands here, right, for dealing with, locking. This should probably say lock. Oh, log in. Okay, yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and try that in the virtual machine. So I am still in archive users. I think I'm just going to close this terminal. All right, and I hit clear here, ls, just to figure out where I am. ls-l, pwd, okay. All right, so now to temporarily lock and unlock a user account, use the following syntax respectively. Okay, so we're gonna lock, but we need an account, right? So we're gonna have to create another account because I already deleted dummy 1. So I'm gonna create dummy 2. Sudo add user dummy 2. Then we have to follow the instructions. So I'm just going to give it these dummy 2. Just going to skip. All right, so that account should now be created. All right, so now we can follow the steps, and it says, let's log into it. So I'm going to do and actually here, there's something in here that allows us to see accounts, I believe. Switch user. I hope it didn't corrupt. No, there it is. Okay, it's just slow. So there you go. You can see I have 2 accounts, so you can switch the GUI way, okay? Or we can switch the terminal way. So I wanted to show this. Obviously, in your homework, you'll create 30 accounts, so you'll have a whole bunch here. I'm going to stay with seed. These. Okay, here we go. But through the command line, I'm also going to pursue dummy 2. Okay, these. All right, now let's do who am I, just to kind of confirm. Dummy 2, ID, oops, ID. 1002, do you guys see that? It assigned the exact same account that we had before. This would have been a problem with the folder and everything. So that's why we did all those steps. Okay, so now let's go ahead and exit out. Exit. And we go back to seed. You can check your 1000, clear. Now it says to temporarily lock an account, sudo passwd-l username. Okay, so let's try that. So sudo passwd-l and then dummy 2. Okay, password expiry information changed. So they should be locked. Okay. So it didn't let me. Does that make sense, guys? All right. We logged in. That's bullet number 2. Okay. And now we're going to unlock with the -u. So we should be able to get back in there, hopefully. So now I'm going to do sudo passwd-u, right? Dummy 2. Okay, password expiry information has changed. su dummy 2 D's, and we are back in it. Okay, so we locked it on, unlocked it. Now we're gonna switch over to groups and creating basically a group here. So sudo add group and sudo del group. We can look at in the here. These are the commands. And then we can add a user to a group. Sudo add user, username to group name, and then view an etc group file. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. All right, so you can create whatever you want. This is your machine. You're the sysadmin there. I'm going to create sudo add group. Okay, and I'm going to call it data science. So sudo add group, the data science group. Sudo. Oh, I'm going to exit out of dummy. Go back to my seat account, and I'm going to do sudo add group. Add group, and I'm just going to call it data science, right? Adding group data science, GID 1003, done, okay? Then I'm going to proceed to add users into this account. So they're basically the two accounts, seed and dummy one. I will add in there. So I'm going to do sudo add user seed into group name, which is data science. All right, I'm going to repeat this task for dummy 2. Okay. And that's it. So that's effectively in Linux how you can create groups and basically, you know, have accounts in them. So now let's go ahead and take a look at what we were looking at earlier today, the group file, right? So we're going to view etc group, hit clear here. I'm going to go to, I'm going to do ls-l etc group. All right, so I can see the permissions of it. All right, so now we can go ahead. We don't need to change it or anything, so we can just run cat probably. All right, there we go. If you notice, we've created at the bottom, the last line, the group data science. We've got an X. What does the X mean? You know, usually relates to the password associated with that group. And then here we have 1003, the ID. And notice that after this colon, separated by comma, we have two accounts, which are seed and dummy 2. These are the two accounts that we have created here. Any questions? Nope, makes sense. All right, great. All right, so that moves us to user profile. So I can't do all of this because we're going to run out of time. And one thing I want to address is the script. So let's jump to the script. And then if time permits, we can come back to this. But otherwise, you guys can just complete this on your own. So this is the profile security. This is important because whenever you create accounts, etc., it's reading information from these files. It's got information on groups. Sudoers. It's got this task, remember the SSH one that you have to restrict. Remember for this one, an account, probably need to use 2 VMs, an account SSH, your USSH into another machine to that account, you get in. Then you need to configure it so it's blocked, that account is blocked, and then you try it again and they should not be able to access the computer, right? So that's kind of the scenario of this problem. But for now, let's move to the script. Okay, I want to give you some of the starter Python code for this one, and you guys can complete it. So we're going to read the problem again. So it says, assume you're a system administrator for a high school. You're having a seminar over the weekend for 30 students. You need to create user accounts for all students on your Linux Ubuntu server. Since you're very busy, you would like to automate this task. Assume you have a text file containing the list of all 30 students. Using Python, write a script that can read the users from the text file and create the account. Include your script and evidence that the script worked. All right, so let's do that. I'm going to go back to the virtual machine. I'm going to hit clear here. ls-l. All right, so we need to write a Python script for this one. All right, so we need to think about the logic. Now, this one, actually, the code is not that difficult. What is difficult is the command, running that command with the specific parameters, right? So I'm not solving it exactly, so you guys will have to fill in some of these, but let's think about how we could do that. So we could certainly use sub process. All right, so we could do, let's call this one add users .py. Okay, we're also going to need a text file, which basically has the students in there. Okay, so we're going to do import OS, import crypt, which if you remember, we had covered this before. This is because of the password, right? Import subprocess. So we know that subprocess, you know, is basically to call commands. What do we need? We need to list, we need to grab all the users, okay? All the users. So we need to read the text file, basically. So I'm going to show you guys something called a list comprehension in Python, okay? We want a list of all the accounts, all right? So I'm going to call this list comprehension users, okay? So basically the way that this works is that in one line, you can write a whole for loop. Just one line of code. That's what a list comprehension means. You use the square brackets, which are the list. And then we need to have a file that we're accessing. So f equal open. So this we've seen before. We're going to need the file that you got. So in this case, students .txt. Does that make sense? And remember that by default, the value here is R for read. So that's all we need. We just need to read these. We need to think about the format that they are in, but that's it. So then in a list comprehension, you write the whole for loop like this. So for line in f dot read lines. Which probably works like that. Okay, so initially we're just going to print this out just to make sure that we're doing it right. Okay, so I'm going to do list comprehension users. Okay, so obviously we need that file to be created. And then what the list comprehension does is, in for loops, you're used to the value being here at the bottom, right? Then you would continue at the bottom, going down and writing all the lines of code. In a list comprehension, you put what would go down here in front of the for. All right, so in this case, line. Do you guys see that? But remember that what it's doing here is that it's populating a list. That's the trick. So if there's, let's say, 30 students, just the first name in that file, it's going to repeat this 30 times, and it's going to be student 1, student 2, student 3 in that list. Okay, so we're going to do, it's populating the list. So that's why you print the list later. So now I'm going to proceed to create the students.txt. I'm going to save this one. I'm going to do nano students. .txt. And I'm going to create, so just first names for now to keep it simple. Okay. So Mary, John, Bob, Tom, Ben. And just something simple. You can populate it with whatever you want. Just keep it simple. Okay. All right. So there should be, there are 5 strings in there. Okay. Okay. So now Control X, Y. All right. Now let's proceed to run our script. So it should be add users.py. Python for me. Python 3 for you guys. And if you notice, what happened there? We were able to read in everything into our list comprehension. Do you guys know what this is? Why does this appear at the end of every word? Do you guys know what that is? What is it? It's the new line character. Yeah, so it's basically like the ASCII code for enter. It's there. You can't see it, but it's there. So we got to get rid of it, right? We got to get rid of it. Another thing that is going to happen is you might have a probably first name and last name, right? So now we got to go in and change that. So it would be something like Mary Smith, John Purdue, Bob Mart, Tom. Give me ideas. Right, Tom, Kim, Ben, Castro. All right. So we have basically we have this, right? So now you want to get this information going. So I'm going to do Control X, Y. All right. So we repeat the exercise. We have them in there, right? But you might want to create like a first name, maybe you're going to do accounts that are first name dot last name, you know, and something like that. I leave that to you. You guys can decide how you want to deal with that. What we need to do is definitely get rid of that new line character and probably split on space. Okay, so that's the next step. So I'm going to go ahead. This should be fine. So I'm going to go to the Python script. Okay. Oops, I ran it. There we go. So we're going to go here. And now in the list comprehension, I want to do everything in the list comprehension. Okay. I want to do this in the list comprehension. So I need to think how I can do this. Line dot split, and it should split by default on space, but just to be careful, I'm going to do that myself. And now this will return its own little list. Because there's 2 items, I want to see if I can put these in a tuple. A tuple is another data structure in Python, which is basically like when you have like pairs of things, key value pairs, for instance, you want to have them in tuples. All right, so that's kind of what I'm trying to do here. I still have the new line character in there. That needs to be addressed, but let's go ahead and play with that. So it created lists, not tuples. It didn't do what I wanted. Okay. All right, so that's fine though. This is fine. I'll have to think a little bit about how to make it a tuple. I mean, it doesn't have to be. I'm just being picky. All right, so now how do we get rid of that in this? So maybe if I just do replace, and then I'm going to say and this dot. Replace what? Replace the new line character with nothing, basically. So I'm going to try to zero it out. Okay, so I'm going to see if that one works. Did it work? It did, right? Now, let's go back. And I can basically get rid of this here, because it's going to do it anyway. So now I'm going to do that, repeat the exercise, and there you go. Do you see that, guys? You obviously need to ask the person that, you know, the principal of the school, okay, please send me a list in this format. First name, last name, that's all I need. Okay, we're not going to make assumptions like, what if I had two people of the same name? You know, don't make it that complicated, although you could deal with that as well. Got it? All right, so we have everything that we need. Now we can iterate through these names and proceed to do the add user, which will be the challenge, the part that I'm going to leave for you guys to work on. So now here we could do another for loop for student in list comprehension users. Okay. Colon 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, these are the list, so I can do print student 0, okay, comma student 1, and that should have the first name and the last name. So we can go ahead and run that one. And there you go. But we can actually get the data now. So now comes actually the hard part. So basically, you probably want to save these in variables, I would say. So I would say first. Oops. Last. Oops. And then remove this last part here, just like that. Okay, so that's basically the idea. And now we need to use subprocess to create the accounts. You need to think that when you run this Python script, you may need to run it as sudo Python something so you can have the root privilege. So the basic command, you're going to need a list of parameters, right? So you're going to need the list here, list command. And we're going to define this one to be now remember, I'm stating this here. It could be user add, or it could be add user. You're going to have to play with that because there are actually several commands, and you know, one may be more user friendly for the script. Okay, but I'm just doing an example here. So let's go with user add. Okay. And then there's going to be some flags that you need to define, such as the password. So you're going to have to look up the documentation on this command. So where is this password? It's some value that you have to figure out. And you have to figure out if it's expecting you to provide an encrypted password or if it's going to encrypt the password. Do you see that? So that's something that I leave for you guys to do. But just as an example, in the case that the password was not, and there's also other ways. So like you can create an account where there's no password, but instead what it says is on first login, the computer is going to prompt the user to create a new password. Do you guys see that? That might be an easier solution, but figure it out. I do recommend that, actually. So again, I'll repeat, find a command that allows you to create an account, but on first login, it'll ask the person to set up a password. Okay. So you can try both approaches. So in this case, I'm just going to try an example, assuming that you hard code a password. Another one could be that you set a password and then they're just going to change. You know, you're going to say to the students, change your password because all of you have the same password right now. It just depends on what you prefer. All right. So in this case, let's say I'm going to use a DaVinci, right? Some password. Okay. And then if you wanted to encrypt this, if you read the documentation of Ubuntu, you can use from Python the function crypt.crypt, which may be accepted by passwd, right? For passwords. So in this case, you can just use something like this, where it takes the passwd and then remember the hash, or sorry, the salt, the salt that we had talked about. This is just so that every company that has employees that use the word DaVinci and crypt don't all have the same output. The CC adds a little bit. All right, so we have that. This should say crypt. Got it? All right, and so that would be an idea of having an encrypted password. And then the user needs to be also set up. So that should be kind of straightforward, because you're probably going to create it based on student 0 and student 1. So the policy could be that since those are strings, you could say what? First, and you could say 1, right? Concatenate it with last. That could be the policy that you want to follow. So let's, currently we're just creating a list here. So we're going to pass user as well. Does this make sense, guys? So let's go ahead and print list command for now. We're going to print list command just like that. All right, so that should be good. All right, so let's go ahead and try this. Okay. All right, so we're going to run Python at users. Gives me an error. That's oh, yeah, sorry. Password. There we go. Because I use password over here. Okay. Run it again. There you go. So what do you guys think? So we've got DaVinci. It gets encrypted with crypt. Notice the utilization of the salt. Okay. And notice you basically took the first letter in the first name and the last name. So M. Smith, J. Purdue, B. Smart, T. Kim, B. Castro. Got it? Does that make sense? All right. So now well, you need to have more parameters probably in there about policies that, you know, on first login, enter the password and such. So just to give you an idea, there may be other parameters like dash M or something like that. And just keep in mind, these should be in double quotes. Okay, so make sure this is the part that I'm leaving for you guys to research. You don't need to print the command. That was just for debugging purposes. Now you invoke this command, so you can go ahead and do you remember, subprocess dot call, and then you can just add in here list command. Just like that. Got it? Any questions? So I'm not going to run this. It might break actually if I run it because I haven't completed this part. So most of your research will need to focus on this and then make sure it works and you create the 30 accounts. Any questions? Make sense? All right. So yeah, that's today. So that's a good stopping point for us today. I'm going to go ahead and save this one. So I'm going to go back to the here. So that's basically related to this problem. And then you also need to complete the other parts of the lab as well, which is basically just follow through that. All right, guys, I'll stay for a few minutes. If you have any questions, otherwise I will see you on Tuesday. We'll start probably a new topic on Tuesday.